Hey there everybody, welcome to our video covering the Legacies top 5 most common events. Now this is not going to be a list of the most powerful or the most popular, more or less the top 5 you're probably most likely to see if you go to any tournament, be it your locals, regionals, or even a national event. So let's dive right in. Alright, easy pickings should come as no surprise to anyone that this card is going to be on the list because it is so impactful to the current meta right now. This is probably the best removal card we have ever seen and the best removal card that heroes have ever had. And this is just one of those cards that really punishes opponents for rolling well, it punishes opponents for rolling bad. If an opponent makes a mistake and flips a die to something they want and then didn't realize that, oh, they're showing two symbols and two sides with the same number, they just lost 2 dice for $1. And so this is a card you absolutely have to be aware of. You absolutely have to be able to play around because if you don't expect it, you can have such a huge tempo loss that could cost you the game or put you kind of on the back pedal. So you really have to be aware of what this card is and what this card can do to you in any given situation. So let's take a look at just how powerful Easy Pickings is with Rose and Ayla. Hero Vehicles is a very popular deck right now in the meta, but let's take a look at both of their dice and what symbols cross over. And if you look here, you see that the indirect damage, the specials, and the blanks are both viable targets. And if you roll both of them out onto the table, you can see that outside of their elite pairing, they have a lot of symbols that cross over, and that's how powerful Easy Pickings is. Players can look at the combinations of dice available, be it your characters, your upgrades, and your supports, and they can determine which characters have the most likeliness of hitting both the same symbol and the same value, and they'll wait to play that easy picking. So you have to be careful when you're rolling out these characters and not get greedy, because if you're trying to go for a special chain and you just roll out a lot of specials, that's an easy target for Easy Pickings to just take 2 of your dice, hopefully the most impactful ones, and then just really slow you down and put a hamper into your overall strategy. So you've got to make sure that you're sequencing your dice appropriately, you're resolving your dice so that you don't set yourself up for a maximum Easy Pickings play, and you get the most value out of your dice before they get mitigated away. Alright, card number 2 is Into the Garbage Chute, and this should be no surprise to anyone right now. The ability to take 2 dice off the table for 1 resource is extremely powerful. Now, this card is relegated to damage only, but in the current meta with 3 wide hero decks, you can easily get rid of your least impactful character. Say for this example, the Jetta Partisan, you just exhaust him and boom, 2 dice are off the table and 2 damage, and that's something the Partisan was not going to be able to do by himself with just that single die. It's almost like Super Guardian. You're able to just pay $1, exhaust a character, and 2 dice are off the table, which can lead to massive plays. You can get a huge tempo swing, and if you're playing for these big bursty, roll out your dice, deal a lot of damage decks, you're going to have to be aware that between Easy Pickings and Into the Garbage Chute, especially being a gray card, that heroes can tech this in very easily, and you don't want to lose that momentum by losing 2 of the dice you desperately need with a single card. So Into the Garbage Chute has a huge impact on the meta right now, and that's something you're absolutely going to have to play around, because if you're not careful and you get greedy or, you try and roll out too many dice, you can be punished with a single card. This card should come as no surprise to anyone watching this video. Vandalize will absolutely make this list probably for the foreseeable future until a better card comes along or a cheaper card comes along, because the ability to just get rid of supports or upgrades for $1 and character dice equal to the cost of that upgrade or support that you're worried about is extremely fair and extremely powerful. So Vandalize is a card you have to look out for, and here are some of the main threats that Vandalize is going to punish. C3PO and Chance Cube are 2 extremely powerful combination pieces in Hero Mill, or really in any deck with heroes. I mean, you could use C3PO and Chance Cube to make 3 shields, 3 discard, 3 disrupt, whatever you really need it to be. Even if you're not running one or the other, both cards are extremely potent, and being able to take those off the table with a single die or no dice whatsoever, if you're looking at Chance Cube, is very powerful. Another deck that you're probably going to start to see is the new Sabine Resurgence, and the big combination is double running interference, and then you lock out your opponent and hit them with Never Tell Me the Odds. So the play is you activate Sabine, use running interference interference to say no one can activate characters. Then you play Never Tell Me the Odds to flip your dice into maximum damage. Use the second copy of Running Interference to say your opponent can't play cards so that they can't mitigate any of the damage away, and then you just blow someone out of the water. But if you have Vandalize in your hand, you can stop the lock by getting rid of the Running Interference, and if you have both Vandalizes, then you can just stop that altogether. And now your opponent not only has to roll out the Sabine, but they have to resolve the Never Tell Me the Odds, and you might have the removal pieces to be able to stop this massive damage, and they might have to go for lower damage so they don't get hit with easy pickings, but then you also have Into the Garbage Chute to mitigate. So with Vandalize, you can kind of shut down one of the most potent combos in the Sabine Ezra deck. And that's what makes Vandalize so powerful right now, is a lot of decks are relying on specific card combinations that Vandalize can hit, and it's not going to cost them a fortune to get rid of some of those powerful combo pieces. Unbreakable is a very interesting card because depending on the way the metagame is shaping out, this card may see play and it may not see play. So obviously when you have a heavy hero meta and a lot of shields coming out of Yoda, Obi-Wan, C-3PO Chance Cube, team-ups, you are going to see shields on all of these characters, which means Unbreakable gains a lot of value because it can hit dice with values of 3 or lower. And if you're playing defensive teaching, that number can go up, but we're not accounting for that. What's really interesting about Unbreakable is you can get it out on the table, removing dice without any shields on any of your characters, which means you're able to target specials and blanks. But let's take a look at some of the big things that Unbreakable pairs well with. C-3PO and Chance Cube, once again, is just a really potent combo because you can use C-3PO plus Chance Cube to make 3 shields. You can even use C-3PO with any other die to put shields on characters, and then you can play Unbreakable if you're seeing something with a value of 1 or more that you just don't want to deal with. Another big target for Unbreakable is Yoda and Poe's Blaster. Yoda rolls specials for days, and we're used to Poe doing action chaining and shenanigans with Poe's Blaster. So if you're looking at specials or even the 1 value sides, you can use Unbreakable to take out Yoda, who has some of the best utility dice in the game, or Poe's Blaster, which does some of the best damage in the game with the, the special chaining. So Unbreakable right now is a very powerful card because once again, you can pay $1 and get rid of very threatening dice with very little restriction for hero decks. Now, if we see a lot of shield hate, shield removal, and a slowing down of shield generation, Unbreakable will probably fall off of this list, but right now, the way things stand, this is a card you're absolutely going to have to look out for, especially playing against heavy shield creation decks. Crashlanding is seeing a lot of play right now just because of not only the versatility it offers, but because it costs you 0 resources to get a die off the table. Now, if you're looking at this card thinking, why would I play this? I'm still taking damage. What's really interesting about Crashlanding is the ability to spread the damage where your opponent doesn't want it to go, especially when you're looking at some of these 3 and 4 wide decks. A lot of the aggro decks are using very focused and very bursty damage. So let's take a look at hero vehicles, for example. You've got Ayla, Rose, and Ezra, and most of the time your opponent is going to pick a target that they want to kill. A lot of people would say Ezra because he's easy to kill, but I feel like Rose is probably the crux of that deck, and then Ayla next. So if your opponent is trying to pick off Rose and you're looking at a lot of damage that's just going to kill her right there and then, if your opponent only has 1 or 2 base sides of damage, or they're showing exactly lethal, being able to play Crashlanding for 0 resources keeps them off guard, because if you don't have any resources on the table, they might assume that you don't have the money for an easy pickings or an Into the Garbage Chute, but you can still use Crashlanding to spread the damage around to other characters, and that means Rose can't die because they don't have lethal showing, and now they're going to have to figure out where they're going to put the damage, and your opponent may or may not have a kill on deck. The other thing that makes Crashlanding pretty good is the 0 cost removal that heroes had beforehand, and it was just really rough. You would have to use something like Loth, Cat, and Mouse, which allowed your opponent to pick your best die, and that really hurt, and you would get rid of one of their die, and that might not even help win you the game or keep a character alive. And then you also have Negotiate, which sure, you could get rid of one of your dice to get rid of 2 of your opponent's dice, but in like some of these decks, you really need your dice because they have the most impact on the table being resolved, and they don't have nearly as much of an impact spending a die to get rid of 2 dice off the table. So Crashlanding has a very wonderful effect that you can surprise your opponent with 0 resources, and if they're showing lethal, you can essentially turn that off and force your opponent to either pitch to reroll, use focus to try and flip their dice into lethal, which hopefully you're going to have some more removal, and you're going to be able to keep outpacing them with your removal events, or you're going to be able to create shields or do lots of different things. But for heroes, the most important thing about Crashlanding, similar to Unbreakable and all these removal cards, is you don't need to die on the table to resolve your effect. That's one of the biggest weaknesses that heroes have had throughout all of the metas we've ever played, and now with Legacies, we're seeing a lot of these removal cards that allow you to take threats off the table, and you don't necessarily have to have dice in order to do it. Now with Unbreakable, you are going to have shields, but that's the thing. Beforehand, you would have to, and I mean you'd have to roll out a character in order to have any kind of threat on the table. Now you don't have to activate characters, your opponent can roll out, and you can use cards like Crashlanding, Garbage Chute, Easy Pickings, and even Unbreakable, depending on the values, to mitigate away their dice and to keep your board state strong and keep the damage low so that you can outpace your opponents and win the game. So Crashlanding is a really neat card because you don't have to have any resources available, and you can split away the damage to keep your characters alive for longer. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it and you want to see more stuff like it, please support us on Patreon. Also like, subscribe, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.